Great. Okay. Well, I think we've got a critical mass now, so I'm sure people will continue to come in as we go through the course of the conference. But just wanted to say on behalf of the consortium, a huge welcome to the conference. For those of you who don't know, my name's Claire Bonham. I'm the Chief Executive of the IARS International Institute, and we are the coordinating partner for the Children First project. Just a few housekeeping things before we start. I think you probably were all muted on arrival, but please, if you can try and remain on mute when you're not speaking, that would be great. Some people's internet, has varying speeds, so if it's easier to turn your camera off, that's absolutely fine. We are recording the session, as I'm sure you're aware, and we will take a few screenshots throughout the course of the conference. Just to say as well, the conference we will have a question and answer session partway through the afternoon. So if you do have questions or comments that you would like to share and that you would like our panel from our partner countries to answer, then please do put them in the chat, and somebody will be monitoring that and putting out any questions. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of very briefly introduce our other partners who you will be hearing from throughout the course of today. So we have Chessi from Italy, we have Centre for Social Innovation from Cyprus, we have the Diversity Development Group from Lithuania, we have Simplexis from Greece, and also from Greece we have the Harassment University. Sorry, Iraklis, if I pronounced that wrong. So yeah, I just wanted to say a huge thank you for giving up some of your afternoon to come and spend some time with us thinking about this issue. We had an initial conference back in January where we launched the e-game for young people, and since that time we've managed to progress both the kind of piloting with young people and with teachers, trainers, educators, and so we're going to share a little bit about what we've found with you today. And then kind of with the most exciting thing is that we have our the results of our international arts contest, and I have to say this has been a phenomenal opportunity for young people aged 12 to 18 across Europe to take part in kind of a way of expressing themselves, either through art, through writing, or through video, and they're kind of expressing their views on an understanding of gender-based violence. And the results have been phenomenal. I'm delighted that we can near the end showcase all of the artworks in a virtual gallery that you'll have time to go and have a look at. But we also have winners for each of those three categories: art, writing, and videos. And so we'll be announcing those later in the session. So just as a way of context for those of you who maybe are new to the subject or not, I'm sure our European partners will be able to share their experiences of what the context is in their country. But since we began this programme a couple of years ago, there just seems to be ever more need for this kind of conversation, these conversations to be happening in a kind of safe and respectful way. I can give you a couple of examples from the UK for those of you who maybe don't know the context here. Just in the last few months, a national conversation seems to have sprung up about this issue, but the things that have been uncovered are quite shocking, really. There was a very tragic kind of abduction and murder of a young woman in London in her early 30s in March called Sarah Everard, and that kind of caused this beginning of a conversation, but really just highlighted that these issues were under the surface and had just been carrying on under the surface. There was a website created last June called Everyone's Invited. I don't know if this is an international thing, but in the UK this has been a big deal. A website where people have been invited to go and share their experiences of kind of sort of sexual violence or rape or other areas where they have been a victim of gender violence and discrimination. And I mean, after the Sarah Everard murder in March, this came alive, and I think there were, since the 8th of March, there have been over 15,000 submissions from victims of some kind of sexual related crime or gender-based crime. These testimonies are anonymous, and it's given people a platform really to go and kind of share about their experiences. And some of the stories are quite shocking. I mean, they've released the information on nearly 3,000 secondary schools in the UK, which, just to give you a bit of context, that's around 3/4 of secondary schools in the UK have been named as places where these testimonies have come from, which is really quite shocking, and also pretty awful for those people those teachers, those parents, those pupils at those schools, because naming and shaming is one thing, but it doesn't then help you provide the support that people need, and it can be very hurtful for the schools involved. On the back of this, our government teaching body, Ofsted, who are the kind of the regulators of education bodies in the UK, launched a report. And again, it came out a couple of weeks ago, and it said that sexual violence has been normalised in schools, that young people just don't bother reporting this kind of stuff anymore because it's just part of their normal behaviour. They said over 90% of girls and 50% of boys had been sent unwanted explicit pictures or videos, and that happened either a lot of the time or sometimes. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to speak into this space today and have that time to do that. And it's fantastic to know that the project that we've been working on over the last couple of years is speaking to a place that really needs to be brought to light. And we've had some really interesting conversations with the young people who've taken part, with the teachers, the educators that have taken part, and you'll hear from some of those today. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of context, as if you didn't already know how important this subject is, before we go into the conference proper. So thank you again for joining. And as I said, please do kind of say hello in the chat, do say where you're from, and do put any questions that you have in the chat as we go through the conference. So the agenda is, we're firstly going to look at kind of how the project has gone so far. So we're going to hear from a couple of our, from ourselves and from another partner who've done the evaluation on the piloting project about how the project's gone. We're going to hear from a young person from the UK who's been involved, and a teacher from Italy who's been involved as well. And then we're going to have an opportunity to look around the online platform, and you'll be talked through that, and you'll have some time to kind of go and look around the resources that we've created. And then after that, we'll come back and have the bit that we've all been waiting for, the winners of our international art contest for 12 to 18-year-olds announced. So yeah, please stay with us, and we look forward to kind of hearing your thoughts as we go through the afternoon. So if we could put up the video from one of our participants in our project. She hasn't been able to come today, but she has prepared a short video for us instead. So we will hear that first.
Thank you so much for attending our conference. In this first segment, I just want to provide an overview of our project, some of the aims and objectives, some of the work that we've been doing over the past 18 months, as well as some things to look forward to. As some of you will know, Children First is focusing around addressing gender-based violence from a bottom-up approach. It's a project aimed at preventing and contrasting school-related gender-based violence amongst children, with a focus in particular on teenage dating violence. The project represents a shared effort of collaboration to educate school children in order to prevent and address dating violence from an early age, but as well as to tackle and undermine main issues and problems that cause dating violence, in particular gender stereotypes, norms, and roles. In order to achieve those aims, there are 5 main strategies or mechanisms in which we have been working on in achieving this. The first is the sharing and collecting evidences and best practices to prevent and tackle dating violence amongst young people. This includes conducting research, focus group surveys across young people across Europe in figuring out what the main issues are, but also what they believe the best forms of practices include. We've also been doing the same with parents, educators, and experts in looking at some of the recent policies and European policies that have been made in terms of tackling and addressing gender-based violence. We've also been developing or have developed training programs, both online and offline, in terms of tackling gender-based violence for school teachers and educators. We've also been developing informal and formal educational tools for children and young people, as well as collaborating with institutions such as human rights organizations, schools, and educational institutions to raise awareness and help build confidence in young people to address these issues, but as well as tackle it from a bottom-up approach. This project is a 2-year project funded by the European Union under the Rights, Equality and Citizenship Programme, and it includes the collaboration of a consortium of 6 organizations, including ourselves, the IRS International Institute. We have organizations from Italy, Cyprus, Greece, and Lithuania who have all provided their input across this project. And through their collaboration, we've been able to develop a pan-European project focusing on tackling gender-based violence. As some of you would know, and as most of you would know, gender-based violence is a huge, widespread problem. It's a humanitarian issue which has significant human rights issues. While policy and literature on this issue are slowly growing, data and violence amongst that remains the largely under-researched and under-addressed issue. And because of the context in which it takes in, as well as the group of people it harms. So this project tackles this issue through a multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approach, in which we literally put the children first to prevent and tackle gender-based violence within the context of dating violence and school-related gender-based violence. This project offers to challenge the attitudes, norms towards dating violence and to create an educational tool to prevent school-related gender-based violence. There are numerous approaches that this project takes, but the main approach that we mention is a bottom-up approach, and that includes centering our understanding and knowledge through the views of children and young people, understanding how they perceive violence, and then developing the tools which will be able to make them feel comfortable within that. These educational tools help us then to develop policy which we think are appropriate in terms of tackling gender-based violence. Another approach we use is a user-led approach in which the young people and children are the consultants, in which we develop the ideas around their thinking, around their knowledge, around their own school experiences. Many of these organizations have youth-led advisory boards, and that includes our consortiums in which we collaborate with young people in developing the contents of the game, understanding what is going on, but also working alongside them in developing awareness-raising campaigns. And the final approach we use is the principle of equality and non-discrimination. And this project supports the principle of non-discrimination and equality, especially with the rights of the child and women. Gender balance is difficult to achieve. No one should be discriminated against, and that is the most important thing that we want to aim and encourage. And as well as gender stereotypes and gender roles are undermined and rejected, and the principle of inclusion for all is embedded throughout this project. Throughout this project, all the time, there were always consistent references to the rule of law and to the rule of equality and non-discrimination. A lot of what we have achieved so far includes we have collaborated and liaised with more than 400 young people. We have worked with more than 200 parents, teachers, educators, and experts. We have produced research reports, which includes recommendations. We've developed online educational tools and materials for teachers, educators, and youth workers. We've produced online e-games for young people, as well as kickstarted national campaigns and initiatives across the countries. You will find out more about each and every one of these throughout this conference, but this is some of the things that we have worked on, we have achieved on. If you want to keep updated, please feel free to check out our website, childrenfirst.info, check out our Twitter, childrenfirst16, Facebook, childrenfirst.eu, as well as an Instagram, childrenfirst.eu. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Great, thank you very much. That was Sundus, who is our project officer for Children First, but who unfortunately couldn't be here this evening. And we narrowly avoided getting onto lots of cat videos instead. But now we're going to hear from Alexandra, who is our project officer for Simplexis, who's going to tell us how the piloting has been going so far.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's been a great pleasure for us. As Sanders was saying, the main aim of the project is to target gender-based violence in teen relationships and in school environments. And in doing so, the project seeks to deliver a positive impact on two specific fronts. The first one involves the teachers and educators. And the project aims to strengthen the existing capacities of teachers and educators on how to better identify and tackle gender-based violence in school and in teen relationships. And the second main area of the project focuses on children and themselves, children and young people between the ages of 12 and 18. And it seeks to improve the understanding and increase the awareness among the children themselves on the underlying social and cultural norms that tend to reinforce these kinds of stereotypes. In doing so, the project has been adopting a design process that is actually based on feedback. If we can see the next slide, you will see that the entire process of the project is based on receiving continuously and throughout the each and every one activity the views of the teachers, of the parents, of the experts themselves. So all the materials that have been developed throughout the project have been based on the teachers' use and experience, the parents' views and experience, and most importantly on the ideas and the perceptions of the children themselves. You will be also hearing lately from members of our youth advisory boards that have been consulting throughout the entire project and giving their feedback on the materials created and on how these can better target and actually address the needs of the populations that we seek to approach. The two of the main materials that we have developed throughout the duration of the project is the e-learning course for teachers and educators and the relevant platform that you will have the opportunity to see in detail later on. And the second main material, focusing this time on children and young people, is the online game that was developed by the consortium. Over the past few months, as Claire was saying, we have been testing these materials. We have been piloting, as we usually say, both the training course for the educators and the online game for children with participants in Cyprus, Greece, Italy, Lithuania, and the UK. It is still an ongoing process, but we have not finished with all the piloting yet, but we have managed to gather a very interesting aspect so far. And as Claire was mentioning, one of the most important aspects was the feedback of the participants in order to see the extent to which what we have actually created does address the needs and the needs that the populations, the teachers and educators and the children respectively face. So far, we have performed workshops with the participation of more than 200 teachers and educators in all the participating countries. The vast majority of them were women. I think more than approximately, if we can see the next slide, it's approximately 87%. A very interesting finding here was that although half of them had more than 10 years of relevant experience in teaching schools, 1/3 of them explicitly mentioned that they have received none or they only have received minimal training in topics relevant to what we have been discussing today. An equally interesting finding and builds very well in what Claire was saying at the beginning of the project for the reality in UK at the moment, which also happens to be the reality in Greece, in the sense that we have seen throughout the COVID quarantine, the actual Greek Me Too movement has started to coming up during this entire time. Nonetheless, and although children that participated in the service that we did for the project, they explicitly mentioned that most of their incidents of gender-based violence do take place at school. The participants, the educators and teachers that took part in the seminars mentioned that they almost rarely deal with such incidents in school. Once every 6 months or once a year was the most prevalent answer. With regard to the evaluation of the training, so far the feedback we have received from the teachers that have participated, if you can see the next slide, has been overwhelmingly positively, in the sense that they have found the training relevant and beneficial to their work, and they think that they will be able to use the materials that we have shared with them and apply them in their daily work. But beyond the evaluation of the training, how good it was, what did you like, what did you not like, an important aspect that we were looking for was to assess the impact that these workshops and the materials developed will have on the actual daily work, but also on the teachers' attitudes, perceptions, and understanding of the issues that we address. And if you see the next slide, you will see that although the participants feel more confident in their ability to support children that are at risk of gender-based violence, and they do believe that the training will have a significant impact in their daily work, they have been quite more reluctant to change their attitudes and perceptions regarding gender-based violence. Nonetheless, when we compare the participants' responses in some small questionnaires that we asked them to complete before and after the training, you will see in the next slide that we see a significant improvement in their understanding of aspects such as gender-based violence, key concepts with regard to gender equality, and what was most important to us was their readiness and ability to respond to this kind of situations, to report and make referrals. And another important aspect that you will also see in detail in the next presentations of the project was that we wanted to provide the teachers with as many materials as we could to use in their classrooms and within their work context. And that was quite positively evaluated from the participants. The other main material of the project, the Children First online game, it is actually an online game that is based on the concept of gamification and serious games. Those of you that have been with us in the previous conference, you might have the opportunity to see all these in more detail. The game is actually based on the psychological theory of planned behavior. Essentially, what we do is we have created several scenarios that cover a range of different relationships that affect children and young people, and we sort of aim to rewire their behaviors and stereotypes by giving them the opportunity to play and fail again and play and fail again throughout the duration of the game. So far, more than 100 people, more than 100 children and youth between the ages of 12 and 18 years old have actually played the game. Most of the children, more than 60 or 70%, depending on the country, have actually said that they had previously played online educational games. And also most of the participants were actually aware of terms such gender identity, gender-based violence, gender stereotypes, difference between gender and sex, and so on. Equally important was the fact that when we asked the children how much they agree or not with various stereotypes that are common between these ages, we saw that most of them completely or strongly disagreed with these kinds of stereotypes. However, there were few that seemed to be more persistent, and it's something important to keep in mind also for the results that we will see in a second, is that two of the most common stereotypes that remain prevalent among the people that participated, the pupils that participated, was that a certain amount of jealousy in relationships actually is a sign of a healthy, normal relationship, and it shows love or somehow. And something that most of the children disagreed with was that they are not able and not willing to share incidents of gender-based violence or discrimination that they face due to their gender with their adults in their lives. They are not even willing to share them with their friends, nonetheless with the adults in their life. It was very nice for us that we received quite positive feedback from the vast majority of the children that participated. For example, you will see in the next slide that some of the children mentioned that the game gave them the opportunity to self-reflect. It gave them food for thought. and also they understood that it is an alternative, let's say, way to increase awareness about concepts that most people in their age not think of most of the time. Nonetheless, as you will see, there were still children, as you will see in this next slide, there were still children and adolescents that were reacted, let's say, somehow negatively in scenarios concerning the LGBTQI community, in aspects regarding jealousy, as we were saying before, and on the existence of appropriate hobbies and activities for boys and girls. And they still, despite playing the game and having all these conversations, deep-rooted stereotypes, some of the deep-rooted stereotypes appear to be more difficult to affect in this case. As I was saying, most of them said that it's not even realistic for them to speak to adults in their lives about such incidents, and in most of the cases they wouldn't even talk to their peers. This is something that we continuously see in research, that children tend to not disclose such incidents, and even if when they do so in their friends and their peers and seek their advice, which is often rooted with stereotypes, and they tend to give answers that are based on these stereotypes and norms, which results in what we say in victimology as secondary victimization. The children is victimized, one, by the perpetrator, and then when they go throughout this whole process and talk with their friends, they're again victimized by their friends, unintentionally, but again, they tend to blame the victim for these kinds of situations. And another important aspect was that the suggestions that the children gave about improving the game, and most of them wanted to, as you will see in the next slide, most of them wanted to have the opportunity to write their own stories within the game, be able to add alternative scenarios, change the ending, change the wording, which is a very important aspect, as it indicates that, in fact, the children did engage with the game. They managed to identify themselves with some of the scenarios and the participants, and they managed to see themselves through these scenarios, which is actually the most important aspect that we were trying to achieve throughout this whole thing. This is pretty much what we have learned so far. As I was saying, the piloting is still ongoing. The workshops for the educators and my colleagues can also provide you with the links if you're interested in any of the activities in our chat. The workshops for the educators are still ongoing in Cyprus, Italy, and the UK. And we are still piloting the online game in Greece and in Lithuania. So we're hoping in the next couple of months, to gather all these findings in an evaluation and impact assessment report that will also, most importantly for us, will also have conclusions, suggestions, and recommendations for similar actions for this action, and on how to better approach these things and how to better target the needs of the children. And thank you very much for hearing me. That's all for me.
Great, thank you very much, Alexandra. That was a really helpful kind of introduction to the piloting so far. As I said, we will have a chance for question and answer sessions after this kind of first section where we report back. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat in whatever language you want, and then hopefully at least one of our colleagues will be able to to answer those questions and to see what they'll say. So please do put your questions or your comments in the chat, because we'd love to hear from you. And as Alexandra said, we are still piloting across most of the countries in one format or other. So if you are interested in taking part in those pilots, please again put that information in the chat, and then we will be in touch with you. So one of the I don't know if it's unique, but the most important features or aspects of the Children First project is the way that it's been designed or co-designed with young people. Each one of our parts of the project has been scrutinised and kind of commented on by a youth advisory board. We've had one for each partner, so 5 different youth advisory boards with young people from the UK, Italy, Cyprus, Greece, and Lithuania. And we, particularly at IRs, that's our kind of our way of doing things, our methodology, that we only work with people who are going to be the people whose issues we're trying to solve. We would never try and solve them on people's behalf, and it's really important that young people are involved at every stage in the process. And the scenarios that have been developed that are used in the game are examples that have come from our youth advisory boards and come from either their lived experience or their kind of understanding of the situations that affect young people. So I'm really delighted that Hannah Upton, one of the UK Youth Advisory Board members, has agreed to kind of say a few words on her experience of being part of the programme so far, and hopefully you will carry on being involved in this project in some way, Hannah. But yeah, Hannah's just going to share some thoughts about what it's been like to be part of the process with us. So Hannah, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. So I'm Hannah. I have recently graduated from university and have been a project and communications intern with IRs. So I have been working on Children First in terms of helping to promote and organise multidisciplinary seminars by contacting different stakeholders, giving my opinions, creating a blog, etc., to really just push forward the youth thoughts on the project. So although my contribution hasn't been ridiculously extensive, I do believe that my sense of the experience is really incredible for me to be able to have my thoughts heard. So I've absolutely loved it. So throughout my speech, as you can say, I'm going to be using a few quotes and feedback from the rest of the Youth Advisory Board as well, just to give you a bit more of a rounded understanding of our insight on it. So firstly, for myself, this topic was never introduced in school. So I like working on this project has been incredibly eye-opening to understand, first of all, the gender-based violence and also dating violence. But it's also been fabulous for understanding how informative and how incredible it is to be able to give that information to children, because understanding how the project works and then how it goes and disseminates this information to young people is really important, especially at the moment. So at this project, I have felt incredibly supported and encouraged to give all of my opinions and provide my insights on what we think, especially as the Youth Advisory Board, can be the best way forward, because obviously we're the people that it's targeted towards. So that's been really incredible throughout. For the rest of the Youth Advisory Board, they have found it really enjoyable, as they have been able to try out different types of roles within the project, and also they have felt that their views have been listened to and taken on. So that's great at the moment, because we feel as if we are valued and we can provide that feedback and suggestions. So this is great because it gives us confidence in not only this project, but also in future projects, give our feedback, because sometimes due to like preconceived age hierarchies, it's difficult for young people to give their feedback. So this is fabulous going forward and actually being valued and listened to. So thank you for that. Another part of the topic that we discussed was the effectiveness of the app. So the Youth Advisory Board and myself all agreed that it was a great way to reach the target audience. Although some people said that there may be a bit too much text in it, we suggested that possibly having an audio file towards it as well would really help gain engagement from not only people who may have disabilities such as dyslexia, but also different target audiences, so those who learn as the audio type learners as well. So we thought that would be a great way to push forward. Personally, I found it as a great tool in terms of the app to relate to the youth now, because technology is such at the forefront of everyone's learning and everyone's communication with each other. So that is a great way for people to easily access and easily understand this type of topic without having to say, like Alexandra said, just talk to other people and feel as if they're being judged. They can learn it in a safe environment where they are not having to share their information. They can learn it themselves independently. So in terms of the effectiveness, we all thought that the app is a great way to be able to learn easily and available for everyone. It's not just waiting to be in school, have the topic taught to you by a teacher, and then it isn't spoken about outside of school. You have that availability and independence to go and get the app, to be able to look at it yourself, go from it time to time. So if a child was having troubles in their relationship or in school, they're allowed to refer back to the app. So we thought that even if it just helps one person, it is a fantastic way to really get the word around and spread the awareness of this issue. And also the fact that it's hitting the different streams, so it's going through teachers and also children at the same time, it will really work on the effectiveness of it. And then the improvements for the app. So we all spoke about what we thought could help the app and also help the project. So one idea was to increase the social media, because at the moment social media is definitely at the forefront again of youth and people's lives at the moment, definitely. So to be able to collaborate with other organizations and to create, I called it shareable content. So that would be, say, like a story post where other people can share it. And then from that one story, it can go towards their followers. And then from that, and it just is a tree branching on and on to create more awareness and to be able to reach different types of people on the internet too. And then also, like Alexandra said, in school, people are less likely to talk to their peers or to their teachers. So when bringing the app and the project into schools and teaching it that way, we suggested to have young people bringing it into schools to be able to relate more to the young people who are there. It's not just a teacher or a professional talking to them, it's someone who can relate to them on the same basis that they would hopefully understand. So overall, from a young person's perspective, the app is incredibly well designed, so well done everyone, and has been really, really great to work on. We've all felt as if we've been listened to, and everything that we have suggested has been taken on board fully, and it's really reached the target audience perfectly, because we all took on the app, we all tried it out and we loved it. So well done for that. And even within the first 2 pages, I learned so much that I had no clue about before. So to go forward, we really think that this is going to be such an effective project and app, and for us, we really enjoyed it. So thank you so much for listening to the feedback, and I'll be here for any questions later on.
Thank you, Hannah. That was fantastic, and thank you for your involvement in the project and for being so able to share the feedback. So thank you very much to Hannah. So as well as young people, obviously we've involved teachers and educators and others. So we're now going to hear from the perspective of Ida Triolo, who is going to talk to us a little bit about her experience as an educator in this setup. So Ida is an English professor at Ernesto Basile High School in Palermo, and she's been involved in the project since the very beginning, and she was coordinating on behalf of her school the group of students who became the Italian Youth Advisory Board. She's also participated and engaged her school in all the training activities addressed to teachers and educators. So she's got a really good perspective to share with us now. So Ida, I'll hand over to you.
Hi everyone. Yes, I am teacher, and I met the children first project last year because as a teacher I have been appointed tutor of a linguistic trainership involving a group of 18 students of the 3rd year of the school where I teach, that is a scientific high school in Palermo in the south of Italy. And so these students became a sort of consultants of the project for the YAB, the Youth Advisory Board, and for these kind of activities and issues, ensuring the bottom-up approach of the project itself. Okay, in my opinion, the bottom-up approach is the key and the strength of the project, because it assures the involvement of the students and the success of the activities. As Claire said, I also took part to the teachers training activities on the themes of the Children First project in April 2021 through a project that was about gender violence in general and dating violence among adolescents when we discussed about how to recognize different kind of teen dating violence at school and the opportunity to denounce these events. Okay, as I said before, in my opinion, the bottom-up approach is the most innovative aspect of the project because it is strictly connected to the kind of activities that were led also by the students themselves, such as, for example, the social media campaign or the peer interviews that they led among students, and also the video game and all sorts of interactive activities. Another important aspect is the main theme of the project, that is gender violence and dating violence. That it's not only physical violence, but also psychological violence and all sorts of behaviors that often hide sick relationships between young people. And it's very important to face this kind of problem at school because it can help students to be aware of the complexity of the relationship among adolescents between the sexes, and that often these relationships are not easy to live, to face in a period of life that is adolescence, when young people are growing up and they are building their own sexual and personal identity. So I think that it's important for us teachers and educators to give them support in this field. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ida. It's great to hear your perspective on it as both someone who did the training but also worked with the young people. So thank you for that. So for any of you who were with us at the last conference, the conference that we did back in January, we actually showcased the game that was for young people that Hannah was talking about, and we gave people the opportunity to kind of have a play with it partway through the conference. Well, this afternoon we're going to look at the other aspect of what we did, and we're going to look at the teacher training resources that we have prepared and put into an online platform. So we're going to hear in a minute from Rugile from Diversity Development Group, our Lithuanian partner, who was responsible for developing the content, and then we'll hear from Iraklis from HUA, who will tell us a little bit about how to get involved in the platform and how to look around the game, the teacher training resources, and then we will have an opportunity for you to go away and have a quick coffee break and kind of look at the platform, log in, and have have a little look around before we come back for the Q&A and the art contest. So I'm going to hand over to Rugile now.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope my presentation will be in the folder as well. It's so nice to see a lot of you. I will not take a lot of time. I will share it with Iraklis, and I will talk more about the content of e-learning program and hand over to Iraklis to talk more about the technical part, how everything works. So I'm not sure if we have my presentation.
No, sorry, I'm trying to access it and I can't get it. So, but I made you co-host so you can share your screen.
Wonderful. I will do just that. Just a second. Here it is. Great. Anyhow, so I will present the content of the e-learning program that I had the pleasure to create together with all partners from different countries. And I will start by saying, like, what do we really know about teen dating violence? When we started creating this platform, I realized in Lithuania and in other countries as well, it's like a big pink elephant in the world of adults, and it's still being treated like this because we know it exists. Everyone's kind of aware of that, but we're not talking about this. We don't have enough data to analyze this phenomenon. So it is like a big pink elephant in a room full of adults. How we created the e-learning platform? Well, first of all, we did research, and because we have no data, no like national data, we did research and we interviewed in all of the partner countries. We did a lot of interviews with teachers, with parents, with young people, asking them about their experiences, what are the problems that they're facing. And according to this data, and also with interviews and online questionnaires that we receive from teachers, we ask, what do you as teachers need for the material that it would be useful for you? So based on this, we created the e-learning platform that I am going to present. In this research, we also saw that for sure teen dating violence is happening, and we had multiple examples of young people sharing their thoughts and what had happened in their relationships, and some of that sharings were really quite shocking. Based on this, we created the platform, and here you can see the content of the platform. We called it 5 steps towards healthy relationships, because in schools, we usually for sure train students how to safely cross the street. But if we talk about how to build healthy relationships, I don't remember it being taught when I was a student. I asked my parents, I asked students, do you have these subjects? And most common answer is no, unfortunately not. I talk with educators and they're saying like, okay, we don't have enough tools, so we don't have enough know-how to talk about these issues. So this is 5 steps that if you follow those 5 steps, it would be easier to do all the learning platforms, starting from creating safe environment. If we talk about teen dating violence, even use the word of violence, as Claire rightfully said at the beginning, it's so normalized that students, they don't realize, they don't call it violence. They call it, maybe I have relationship problems, or maybe it is jealousy, right? So we do need to create this safe environment at the beginning of the training. And in the e-learning platform, you will find practical tools how to do that, how to create that safe environment for students and for educators to feel safely to talk about these issues. Then we go to step 2, understanding the causes of gender-based violence and teen dating violence in schools and in relationships. If we don't know the main problems, right, we cannot address the right issue. So in this module, you will find more information on what are the main causes of gender-based violence and teen dating violence. And one of the main causes is gender stereotypes. So you will find more information in this module and have this information for training and open the conversation, open the dialogue with students as well. Then we dive into step number 3, and we talk about tackling gender-based violence in schools. And here you will have some theoretical information on, manifestations of gender-based violence in schools. We had some information from our research and study that we did, that young people told us what they are experiencing. So you can read more in this module how it manifests in schools. Then we dive into teen dating violence in relationships. So again, we will have theoretical information on teen dating violence, and we will have some practical exercises. And last but not least, we have step number 5. If I am aware, if I open the dialogue, and you open the sack and you never know what will fly out of it, and if stuff flies out, you need to know how to react to that. So here we come to step step number 5, how to react, how to report, what to do, you know, if you have this information. So these are the 5 main steps that this e-learning platform is suggesting. Again, this platform was created by people from partner countries that are doing training themselves, that are trainers themselves. So we used our practical knowledge, and that's why we included a lot of applied learning activities, exercises that you can use with students aged from 12 to 18 years old, and also a lot of resources, videos, article, games, and visual material that you could also use in the training. So just a couple of examples of theoretical information, right? How it is portrayed in the e-learning platform. And also, if we talk about activities, the activities is formed in the way that you can basically download it to your computer, print it out, disseminate it to students and use it right away, right? Also the resources as well. And just one last thing, an example of the activities. If we talk about gender stereotypes, right? We have one activity where we ask students to name those gender stereotypes for girls and for boys, and students are engaged in this activity. And for example, in Lithuania, we did trainings online for students and for teachers, and we had like great results because they just kept sharing and sharing and sharing online. And by the way, you will have tools how to do this training online as well in the program. So you will have some tips how to like engage students online, what tips and tricks to use. So we did just that. We transferred some activities online. And what we received, for example, here in Lithuania, what are the consequences of gender stereotypes that girls and boys are living with? One of the sticky notes was that you feel that you shouldn't live. So basically, students are living with these gender stereotypes. They're living with this gender-based violence, and the consequences and the thoughts in their head sometimes is really, really scary and frightening. So you will have this in the e-learning platform, as well as how to engage youth as trainers on this issue. You will also have that, and I want to finish that before passing the word to my colleague Iraklis, that as Martin Luther King said, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just the first step. So I really like this saying, and better done than perfect. So I encourage you to go explore e-learning platform, and just to start, not necessarily perfectly, not necessarily with a whole like program or big thing in your head, just do the first training, do the first lesson, and you will see the reaction of students, and maybe you will be hooked and try to learn some more. And how to do that, how to go into that platform and system, I will let my colleague Iraklis show you in a very practical way how to do that. So I will stop sharing my screen. Yep. Iraklis, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gile, for the very comprehensive introduction to the platform. So I will just provide some technical guidelines on how to access the platform, how to log in and access the content. So from the main website of the project, you can go to online resources, and there you can scroll down to the section that says training materials, and there is the link to the e-learning course. Also, further below, you can find the links to the online game if you're interested to download the game, the e-learning, the electronic game for iPhone or Android devices. So let's go to the e-learning course. This is the first page of the e-learning course. This is based on a Moodle platform. So we have created 4 different versions in 4 different languages of the course, in Greek, in Lithuanian, Italian, and English. So when you enter the platform, you have to log in order to access the content. So you can press the login option in the top right corner first. Then here you have to create an account for the first time. Every other time that you have your account, you can just enter your credentials here and press login. But for the first time, you have to create an account. So you press here, and here you fill in your details, your username and password, your email address, and make sure that this email address that you give is an email address that you actually use, because you have to use you will receive an email to this address, and you have to use this email to verify your registration and to access the platform. So use a valid email address here, and then you can give a username and your first name and surname, and also your city and country, and validate that you are not a robot in order to create your account. So as soon as you fill all this information here, you can create your account, and then you have to check your email for a confirmation mail coming to you from the Children First email account. After you press the confirmation email, the confirmation email will look like this one. System administrator of Children First will email you about that. You have to click on this link in order to accept the creation of your account. So after you do this, you can go to the first page as before, and you can enter your account details here and log in. Okay. So now you have logged into the platform and you have access to all the courses in all the 4 languages. You can select the course in the language that you want. If you go to the site home here on the left, and then you scroll down until you find the course in the language that you want to join, let's say in the English language. And then you have to make sure that you enroll yourself to the course. So before anything else, before start browsing everything about the course, you have to enroll. So in this page, you have to scroll to the bottom and press the Enroll Me button. So this will add the English version of the course to your dashboard. You can find it every other time that you log into the platform, and also gives you access to the whole content. So don't forget, create an account, log in, and then any other time, and for the first time enroll. And then every other time you have to log in and just browse the content. So here we are in the English version of the course. You can see on the left the map of the course. You can see the 5 modules of the course. In each module, you have more or less the same structure, the educational objectives of the module. Then we have, let's go to module 1. Then we have some theoretical information, some activities that you can practice with your students. So these are activities, creative activities for the educators to start the discussion about the issues. And then we have also some practical exercises for your students, and some handouts that you can print and give you to your students. Finally, in some cases, we have some additional tips that can be useful for you. And at the end, we have this a quiz in each module that allows you to self-assess what you have read through the module. It's time that you click on a section or a subsection and read everything and finish it. Don't forget to, or move to the next one and so on. Don't forget to tick the respective sections that you have finished here in order to make sure that you know what you have read and what you have not read so far. In order to motivate, let's say, the participants, we also have this option here that summarizes the progress, your progress in the course. As many content you read, you receive points, experience points, and you climb up to this scale of different levels. And also we have a progress bar where with green color we have marked everything that you have already read, and with red color everything that you are missing. So you can go directly to a section that is missing, and you can just um, read the content or do the activity and so on. Also, for people with reading issues, reading disabilities, we have the options to change the color scheme of the page and also to increase or decrease the letters, the font size. And that's it, more or less, concerning the quiz. As you can see here in module 3, we have restricted the quiz for people that have not already done read the activities or done the activities. So you first have to do and check all the activities in order to unlock the quiz. So for example, in module 1, the quiz is unlocked because all the activities have been checked, and now you can go to the quiz and attempt the quiz one or multiple times like this. So the quiz contains some multiple choice questions or some fill the gaps or matching questions. You can put your answers, you can finish the attempt and have an instant response on your progress. So I just submitted my answers and here are the results. So I have an immediate feedback concerning the answer and the correct answer. And that is more or less from my side. I don't know if you need more information about the platform. If you go back to the dashboard, you can see your course. So every time that you log in the platform now, the English course will be in your dashboard and you can directly access it from there. You can also see your progress here in the completion of this course. And if you want to access the content in another language, you have to go back to the site home, choose another language, for example, the Greek content, and enroll. And now you have both courses in your dashboard here. So now we have the Greek course and the English course. That's all from my side. I don't know if we have a few minutes to also provide the links. Yeah, thank you, Claire. To provide the link to the game.
Anita's put the link to the website.
Okay. So yeah, these are the links for the game, but also you can find them from the website. Okay. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Iraklis. So we have the project website in the chat, and what we're going to do now is give people the opportunity, say 15 minutes, to go away and kind of to stay on the Zoom call, but go and have a look at the resources and have a little play around. And Iraklis is going to sit here as technical support while everybody's trying to get onto the platform. So so this is what we did in our last conference, and we're going to do again now, is to give people the opportunity to have a look around the platform now. So as I say, please don't leave, because we've got some really exciting stuff to come with our art contest. But feel free to turn your video off and to kind of go and have a play on the new site. And as I say, if you have any technical questions, then please do put them in the chat, and Iraklis will hopefully be able to help you. So as I said, we're going to take 15 minutes to do that now. So chance to go and grab yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and to have a little look around the platform. And then we'd love to hear your feedback when you get back. So we'll come back to the main kind of conference in sort of maybe just around 15 minutes. So 2:50, 3:50 or 4:50, depending on which time zone you're in. And then we will have an opportunity for question and answer before we move on to the next part of the programme with the arts contest. So please put your questions in the chat, and then we will endeavour to answer those. And you can ask any one of us of the partners any questions, whether it's about the platform, or whether it's about the training for young people in the game, whether it's about the general process or anything like that. Please do put your questions in the chat. So we will leave you to have a quick break, get a kind of a sense of how the platform works, and then we'll see you back here in 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, so we'll give a few minutes for people to come back. Thank you very much for everybody who's been testing the platform. No technical issues, Iraklis, that's good news. No one's put anything in the chat. So okay, so we have now scheduled in this kind of next few minutes before we go to the art contest an opportunity for Q&A. I've seen a few comments in the chat about people enjoying the presentations, which is fantastic. But we haven't had any specific questions. So if anybody does have anything they would like to ask any of us, then we would love to be able to answer your questions. Or any comments that you might have on the platform that you've just tried, please put those in the chat now, and then we will kind of have a look at those. So just give you a few minutes in case anybody's got any questions that they would like to put in the chat. Or if anybody would like to add a comment about the platform and how useful they found it, or whether they there was anything they felt was missing, or anything. Yeah, some feedback. Hannah, do you want to actually say your question if you're happy to?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I just wanted to say it was a great choice of platform. So Moodle, for university, especially my university, we use it to learn all of our courses. So for new teachers and student teachers coming out of university, it'd be great for them because they already know how it works. So it'll be really easy for them to just quickly go on to another part of Moodle to learn this training course as well. So that's great that you used a platform that is already widely known and a part of the education sort of community. So really well done for that.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you to I'll take the opportunity to say thank you to all our partners who've been involved in this process, because not only did we have to create the materials, but also then to translate them, and there's a lot of information in there. So our partners have worked very hard to translate those into the national languages. So thank you to all our partners for that. Phil, I see something in the yes, Phil, thank you. It was an enormous amount of work, and great credit goes to Regile and all the other partners who've been involved in that. So yeah, thank you, Phil, for recognising that. I hope disbelief in a good way, Phil. So thank you. Well, and I hope that I hope this will be something that people will go away and you know, and use and think about how they can use in a variety of settings, because although we've designed it mainly for in-school use, clearly there are many other applications or ways that this could be used. And I mean, it'd be interesting to get any teachers. I don't know if we've got any teachers on today, but whether it'd be good to get at some point your feedback as to how you found that. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any other questions in the chat. I mean, obviously this is not your only opportunity. Oh, good question from Phil there. So Phil's asking, when did this launch and are we able to track its impact? Does somebody want to answer that, Regile or Alexandra, perhaps? I mean, it's been going at a different pace in different countries, but perhaps one of you would like to just come in on that.
Yeah, for sure. We launched it. I mean, Regile will be able to, and Iraklis say more about that. But in spring, in March, I think we started having the platform online, and we have been testing it in all participating countries: Greece, Italy, Cyprus, Lithuania, and the UK. And we are able to track its impact. We're doing an evaluation and impact assessment. We briefly mentioned some of the results earlier, and we're hoping to, as soon as we finish the piloting, to have a full impact, an evaluation and impact assessment report to see how well it was received. So far, it's pretty encouraging. And as I was saying earlier, we're still piloting in various countries, so feel free to check out our websites, the partners' websites, to see more information if you would like to register for the seminars in Cyprus or in the UK or for the piloting in Greece that we're doing right now of the online game, or the piloting in Lithuania that is still ongoing. So yeah, we hope soon to have an impact assessment report on the entire thing.
I can add to what Alexandra said about a little bit about Lithuania when we tested here, and what you said, although its main target group are educators, but in Lithuania, we also encourage community officers, police officers that go to schools and talk about these subjects, also to try it out. And some of them said it's really going to be a great material for their work. And also, like in Lithuania, we are using the Lithuanian version, but I had some feedback from teachers, especially from English language teachers, that they appreciated to have this material in English as well, because they can use it in English classes, and actually you learn the language, you learn how to speak in it, and also in a very great subject. So that was the feedback from Lithuania, and what our educators appreciated the most was probably the practical assignments, ready to use practical assignments that they could use with students.
Great, thank you. And I just say, Phil, we still haven't done the kind of teacher/educator training pilots in the UK, so we will be in touch with you afterwards, because if you'd like to take part, that would be great. I should say as well, we will be sending around a kind of email to everybody after the conference with the access to the recording and also the slides that we've used as well. So and the kind of the information from each national partner as to what they're still doing and what they would like kind of help with in terms of piloting and things going forward. So thank you very much everybody for your interest. And Iraklis says we've had 180 registered users in the platform, which is fantastic. So one of the things that we kind of need to think, each of us as different partners in different countries will need to think about is kind of where we go from here after the end of this project. This project actually finishes in August, and so we need to think about then how do we embed that in our kind of ongoing practice. And just a very quick plug for those of you from the UK, after the conference, straight after the conference, we are hosting a short roundtable discussion with anybody who's interested in thinking about how we take this forward and what the next steps would be. So please do stay on for that. I know that there's some kind of insignificant sporting event happening later for English participants, but I'm sure you can spare us an extra half an hour or so to think about where we go next with this. One of the most exciting things that we've done as part of this project, apart from all the phenomenal resources we've created, is actually to also run this kind of national awareness raising competitions in each country, opportunities for people to via social media and other places to kind of use the platform to bring the conversation forward, to start the conversations. And so one of the things we did as part of this was to run an international arts contest, and we've had participants from all over Europe, not even just our partner countries, but other places as well. And so it's really exciting now that we're able to announce the winners of that. So I'm going to hand over to Francesca, and she's going to explain a little bit about the competition and how that's worked. We've also been incredibly lucky to have a great panel of judges, an international judging panel for the artworks, and we're going to hear from two of them as well. So and if any of the other judges have joined us, thank you once again for your hard work and your involvement in judging these particular pieces of art, because the standard has been really high. But I'll hand over to Francesca now, and she can talk you through the next bit.
Yes, thank you, Claire. Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Barbino. I work at CC as a product manager. And today I have the pleasure to introduce this art contest, Art Against Teens Dating Violence. So it was just the last activities we thought in order to engage young people, to empower them, and to raise awareness among them on teen dating violence. So what we did was to launch this contest last March with the aim of reflecting adolescents' understanding of relationship free from gender-based violence through their artistic form. It was open to all young people from 12 to 18 years old from all over the world. It was free of charge and open to three main categories of artworks: images, videos, and writings. So we received, if you can go, thank you very much. Also the following slide. Thank you. So as you can see, we received 39 artworks from 6 countries, even beyond the countries represented in the project consortium, as Claire was saying. In all these artworks, as you will see in a while, the artworks reflect adolescents' creativity, their critical thinking on an issue that affect directly adolescents. So we are very proud of the artworks. You will see. We will show you. And for assessing these artworks and finding the best one, we could count on an amazing jury committee, which was set up by selecting in each country prominent experts on gender issues as well as artists, in order to have a multidisciplinary group of people who help us to analyze in detail the works received. So again, thank you very much to all our jury members for their amazing work. Now, before discovering the winners and showing you the gallery, we will listen to some of the jury members. Let's start with Maura Gancitano, who is an Italian writer, philosopher, and expert on gender issues, who recorded a video for us.
Salve a tutti e a tutte, sono Maura Gancitano, sono una filosofa italiana e ho partecipato come giurata a questo concorso Art Against Teen Dating Violence. Sono stata molto contenta di accettare questo invito e di vedere, ascoltare, leggere le opere presentate, perché mi è sembrato davvero un'occasione per cercare di capire attraverso arti diverse come raccontare qualcosa che tocca profondamente da moltissimo tempo, da millenni, la nostra società e di cui adesso si sta per fortuna diventando consapevoli anche da molto giovani, anche nel contesto scolastico. Quindi sono stata molto contenta di vedere come l'espressività, la creatività delle persone più giovani abbiano in qualche modo come dire, alimentato queste opere. Sono stata contenta di vedere ragazze, donne estremamente consapevoli rispetto al proprio corpo, rispetto alla propria autorappresentazione e questo è stato chiaro anche rispetto ad alcuni dettagli, per esempio dei cortometraggi, ma anche dei testi, delle immagini, e lo stesso sono stata molto contenta di vedere come ragazzi maschi siano sicuramente molto più consapevoli di quanto fossero i miei coetanei alla loro età, quindi diciamo una ventina d'anni fa. Sono davvero molto contenta di aver accettato questo invito e vi lascio quindi alla premiazione. Grazie.
Thank you. Oh.
So thank you again to Maura for accepting this invitation and for her job. And now I would like to introduce also Ugne Litvinaite, who is an analyst and researcher in the field of inequalities, and particularly in the field of gender inequalities. She's from Lithuania and based in the UK. So Ugne, thank you very much for being here today.
Hello all, it is my pleasure to be here today and represent the jury of the contest Teens Against Violence within the Children First project, as it was my pleasure to sit in that committee and actually have an opportunity to discover how young people around the world interpret the topic of violence in relationships through various forms of art. As Francesca said, we had an abundance of forms of art, images, posters, videos, writings. So I was thinking what to say, and then just was trying to find the context where to put everything. And I would like to quickly remind us all that according to most recent Fundamental Rights Agency's survey in 2019 on crime and safety, while nearly 1 in 10 people in the EU experienced physical violence in the 5 years before the survey, young people in that survey that was between 16 and 29 years old are at the highest risk of it compared with people from other age groups and also compared with other socio-demographic characteristics. Close to 1 in 4 people aged 16 to 29 experienced physical violence. Incidents of physical violence against men most often take place in public settings, while incidents of physical violence against women most often take place in their own home. That is, they experience violence from the closest people to whom they actually should turn for love, intimacy, support, and help, and above all, not to experience violence from them. When asked if any of the physical violence involved incidents of sexual nature, more women than men say yes, with women saying that they experience psychological consequences as a result, possibly for a lifetime. In the EU, 1 in 3 women has experienced some form of physical or sexual assault since the age of 15. And 1 in 10 women has experienced some form of sexual violence. And again, on many measures of violence, both from partner and non-partner, the highest prevalence rates are observed in the youngest age groups and women. Being young is also linked to higher rates of victimization, which holds true across all EU countries. That is the experience that can be as violent as the incidence of violence itself. Then young women find courage in themselves to report what happened. They face claims that they can and should blame only themselves for what had happened to them. Quite often, this data is treated with mistrust. From my experience in advocacy and analysis field, arguing that women overstate their experiences, that surveys are methodologically flawed, that low rates of reporting to police show that the problems are not that significant, and regarding the young, that they are too sensitive and overstate the harm of other people's acts. But what figures can tell, I would say, maybe emotions expressed through art can. And to me, the artworks in this contest showed that young people experienced all kinds of violence, psychological, physical, and sexual. And that shatters their worldviews, their personalities, relationships with their friends, families, people in close and distant environment, and most importantly, with themselves. I have to say, I did cry while watching some of the short movies and reading the writings of such young souls harmed to the core already. The level of detail, of sensibility, of pureness of emotion in some artworks showed clearly to me that the creation comes from experience, sometimes the most terrible experience of violence I could imagine, and deep reflection. We know from psychologists' research that sexual violence, including and particularly intimate partner violence, is profoundly damaging in many respects and does leave an imprint on people's lives. And beyond psychological distress and potential health problems through lifetime. In the young age, it negatively impacts identity formation processes. It just interrupts it. During the period when young people should be searching for themselves, diving into topics that interest them, that they're passionate about, discovering new areas without care, for their safety, for their bodies to be physically, sexually abused, for their minds to be psychologically mistreated, some youngsters, mostly girls, are deprived of the sense that they are worthy, that they can do and be, that they are full persons who matter in the world. Even if young women do not experience violence, they are subject to sexual harassment. Every 2 women in the EU experienced one or more forms of sexual harassment since the age of 15. And young women, again, represent the age group that is most vulnerable to sexual harassment. If the girls accidentally fall to the lucky half of womanhood in Europe that does not experience violence or harassment, she is likely and always aware and afraid of it. Surveys show that younger women are generally more worried than older women or men about the threat of physical or sexual assault by both strangers and non-strangers, and take more risk avoidance measures by limiting their movements in the public domain, avoiding certain situations or places, planning where and then they cannot be every day. This has to change. And I have to say, I also did cry while watching videos and looking through the images in which I saw how alert to unfairness of these experiences our young people are, how intolerant to violence they are, and how we strive as a society to change to be intolerant and free of violence. How attentive we are to their post-traumatic growth, both personally and within the healthy relationships. And most importantly, how support and solidarity in friends networks play a key role in their artworks. So I believe in their lives too. I was amazed by the symbols of solidarity between women in the posters, by the depiction of care and support given by girlfriends to the one trapped in psychologically abusive relationships. And above all, I won't hide, I bursted into tears in the end of the winner in video category when boys who played the role of abusers in the short story in the end came out with a strong message. If I love a girl, I want her to be free. I am young. I still do not know what love is, but inside of me, I know that it is not violent. This contest has both hurt me in many ways, again and again, seeing that the violent nature of relationships does not fade as generations change. I also experienced violence in early relationships when I was still at school. And today I read experiences of young girls as if they were giving words to my experiences many years ago. But this contest also gave me hope, seeing how alert to violence and how supportive of each other to go out of violent relationships, and how supportive of each other in their fight for the cause to end all kinds of violence, girls and boys there, as depicted in the artworks. Again, hopefully, supposing that this is something taken for a norm, or at least an ideal among today's adolescents in their everyday life. It also gives me inspiration to continue working towards comprehensive sexual education in schools, towards awareness raising in the wider society and all its sectors, families, schools, communities, institutions responsible for preventive measures, as well as safety and justice, and continue reflecting on and building positive and healthy relationships. Continue until we achieve, and as soon as possible, that not one person finds herself or himself in violent relationships or violent situations. And if our young generation is more alert to violence, more able to identify it and call it out than any other generation before, this is for the better. This is the start. And I hope that everyone who was involved in this project in many ways will continue to be taking this message that the contest conveyed to us and building the measures, building on what you have already achieved with all the educational content and the discussion that you've launched and the networks you've created in the future to build a society free of violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ugne, for your incredible work, as you remember, and also for the important messages you stressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, that was fantastic, and I think I almost don't want to say anything else apart from to announce the winners, because you've been so eloquent in your summing up, and also your hope for the future, and that's obviously ultimately why we're here, because we believe that we can build towards a better future. So thank you so much for sharing with us. So I don't think the people who won the awards haven't been notified in advance, but I don't think sadly any of them could join us today, but we will still get to share their success, even if they're not here to hear it, and we will be in touch with them afterwards and sharing the prizes that we've got for them. So I'm going to announce the winners now of the 3 different contests, and then we'll be able to see their contribution as well on the screen. And then what we do have is the opportunity we have a fantastic online gallery sort of app that you can use, and we'll put into the chat the link to this online gallery, and we'll also share it with you afterwards, because it really is, I mean, the standard has been phenomenal, and the level of creativity, as Ugne has already said, has just been both kind of mind-blowing and also incredibly emotional to see. So I really hope that you will take the time either now or later to actually have a look at the artwork that's been produced, because our young people have done a phenomenal job doing that. So in that sense, to say something really cheesy, everybody, they're all winners. Sounds cheesy, but it's true. Everybody who's taken part has proved a very worthy participant. So we're very grateful for that. But we do have winners, as I said. So the first winner, the winner of the images category, is Akvile, who is an 18-year-old from Lithuania, and her artwork was called "It Hurts What Hurts During Dating." And hopefully we can just have a quick look at that one now. I can do that if you want. So this is the artwork for the images contest. It hurts what hurts during dating. But there have been some really, really good artworks, but this one was felt to be the best in terms of a range of categories. So well done to Akvile, who did that one. The next one I'm going to announce is the writing contest. I'm going to announce the video one last, because it's a really long video, but you really should watch it because it's fantastic. So for the text competition, we allowed people the opportunity to either to write a poem or to write their story or their experiences, and some of them are very, very moving. I should point out, for safety's sake, that we did kind of have the permission to everybody who submitted artwork for us to be able to use their artwork. When you see or read some of them, you might think they're actually quite raw and emotional, which is incredibly powerful. But just to be clear, we did make sure that they had given us their permission to use and share these things, because some of them were very sensitive. So the winner of the writing competition is from 17-year-old Mason from the UK, from London. And this is his poem that he wrote. And I'll just give you a few moments to read through the poem. I won't read it out myself, or else I'm sure I'll mess it up. So this is the poem that Mason wrote for you to have a quick read of. Great, thank you, Desiree. That's again a very, very kind of emotional and kind of emotionally mature piece. So very well done to Mason as well. The video one has been one. Ugne shared a little bit about the video, and I really want you all to watch it. It is 13 minutes long. So what I suggest is we do a kind of a wrap up of the conference as a whole, and then show the video afterwards, because it is worth watching from the beginning if you have the time to do that. So I would encourage you to watch that. But it's a video called Gio's Story. And just to give a quick description, it's Gio offers his boyfriend his youth and love as a gift, symbolized by a flower. Between two levels of reading, that of reality and that of metaphor, gender-based violence amongst the youngest is told with an escalation of behaviours ranging from initial signs of tension, grumpy attitudes and hostile silences, up to physical and psychological violence. And then there's a fantastic piece at the end where we hear from some of the participants in the video, and I would encourage you to watch all the way to the end because it's definitely worth it. And that video is a collective video from some our partners in Italy, and it was made by Milena, Andrea, Lucia, Emma, Harris, Alessia, Aurora, Asia, Eduardo M, Georgia, Chiara, Iolanda, Chiro, Julia, Mattia, Diego, Andrea, Nicolo, Beatrice, Andrea, Linda, Bianca, and Eduardo B. So a lot of people have put their time and effort into that video, and it's a very, very good video. So I would definitely encourage you to kind of stay and watch the video at the end, because it's a very powerful piece of art. Yeah, so thank you so much for kind of all of our judging panel. I don't know if any of them, apart from Ugne, here, but it's been a really good experience, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as part of the judging panel too. So as I say, in the chat we've put the link to both the kind of the piece on our website, and then also this kind of art space matrix area where you can go and look around as if you're in a virtual gallery. So we would really encourage you to do that, and we will also send around, as I said, the winners and the winning poems when we contact people afterwards. But yes, so please do go and have a look at all of them, because they are all worth seeing. So I just wanted to take the opportunity really to kind of to wrap up by kind of asking what next. As I said, I feel like Ugne's have kind of already done the work on that. But again, I don't know if anybody wants to put any comments or questions in the chat, but we're really kind of keen that this conversation doesn't finish here. There are piloting opportunities, as we've already said. So if you want to take part in any of the piloting in each of the countries, we can put the information in the chat, or afterwards we can submit it afterwards for people who want to kind of see where we're going to go next, and we will share all that with you. Does anybody have any other comments or questions about the project so far? I don't know if any of the other partners want to come in with any thoughts about how we can, once we've done the piloting, how we can embed this properly in our schools and our kind of social spaces in each country, or whether anyone has any further comments or reflections. Okay, just as a reminder of the things that we can definitely do as partners, I'll just share that we can encourage young people to play the e-game. Please do try out the e-learning toolkit if you didn't have a chance to do that, and please do take part in our teacher training program. And we hope that this isn't the end of our conversations with you guys on this subject, and we hope that it's just the start really, and that we can actually be part of that change and be part of that hope that Ugne was just referring to. So I will stop sharing the screen. So unless anybody has anything else they particularly want to share or comment on, I think we may kind of finish a little bit early, but with the opportunity for you to go and look around the gallery and to look at all the other artworks. As I said, for those of you in the UK, at about 3:45, we're going to move into just a roundtable conversation. So for UK participants, if you have the time to stay, we'd love to have you with us for that. We are going to hear from a guy called Drew Linden, who is the external evaluator who did an external evaluation for our project, for the whole project, and has some thoughts about where we can go next. So we'd love you, if you're in the UK, for you to stay on for a bit longer. and you'll have the chance to maybe have more in-depth discussion with people like Hannah who've taken part in the project, and those of us who are kind of thinking about where we take this next. Yes, the artwork is all available in two places. The videos aren't in the gallery, but they're on the Children First website. So the Children First website has that kind of, there are two links that Alexandra shared, the Children First website info and then the online gallery. So people from the online, people who want to see the videos can do that. We're now going to show, yes, the winning video. As I say, it is 13 minutes long, but I highly recommend that you stay and watch it all, because it's a very powerful piece of kind of theatre. So if we can show that now, and then after that, people are free to go. But yeah, and apart from the UK people who we asked to stay on shortly. But just before we do show the video, I just wanted to say, as we near the end of this project, that it's been a really fantastic project to work on, and that's partly due to our brilliant partners. So I wanted to sort of take the opportunity to thank you, partners, for all your hard work, and all the young people and teachers, educators and professionals that we've worked with. Thank you very much for all your involvement. And now, yes, we'll watch the winning video.
Pronto, amore? Ciao.
Buongiorno amore, mi stai pensando?
Lo sai che ti penso sempre.
Sei la mia vita.
Non vedo l'ora di vederti.
Da quando ti ho conosciuta non faccio altro che pensarti.
Beata te che hai col fidanzato. Così attento e premuroso. Pensate che per il mio nomastico mi ha anche regalato un peluche. Wow, che carino. Che cos'hai?
Niente,
Mi sembri strano.
non mi piace come ci sei vestita.
Ma non ti metti più la minigonna perché te l'ha detto lui? È solo geloso, vuol dire che ci tiene.
Quando fai la brava ti amo da morire.
Lui fa tante cose per me. Se mi chiedi di dargli prova del mio amore, lo faccio. Non vedo dov'è il problema. Boh, non ti riconosco più.
Ehi piccola, dove sei finita? Perché non mi rispondi?
Scusa, amore, non ti ho risposto perché ero a danza.
Non voglio che tu vada a danza.
Ma io amo la danza. Ci vanno anche le mie amiche.
Le tue amiche non sono importanti, adesso ci sono io.
E Gio, ti ricordi il tuo ex, Filippo? No, raga, ma quella volta in piazza... Ci siamo divertiti tantissimo.
Ieri mi hai fatto fare la figura dello stupido con le tue amiche.
Ma dai, amore, hanno fatto una battuta sul mio ex, è per scherzare.
Tu non mi fai fare la figura del coglione davanti a tutti, chiaro?
Scusa, non volevo.
Scusa, amore, ti prometto che non lo faccio più.
Mi ha promesso che non lo farà più. Se l'ha fatto una volta, lo farà anche la seconda e la terza. Ti giuro che lui mi ama, mi vuole bene. Non è amore, è solo possessivo. È stata colpa mia, non ho saputo gestire la situazione.
Con chi eri al cinema?
Dai, non cominciare, ero con Paolo e Matteo.
Ma lo vuoi capire che sei solo mia?
Ehi Gio, ci sei sabato alla fine? No, mi dispiace, non posso, cioè, non mi va. Mi spieghi perché non usciamo più insieme? È stata solo una verifica sbagliata, una distrazione. Gio, non è vero, stai andando male a scuola. Ma non è possessivo, è che non ti lascia respirare, renditene conto.
Perché sei cambiata? Scommetto che sono le tue amiche che ti hanno fatto cambiare.
Scusa, è che...
Fai quello che dico io.
Ciao, ho bisogno di staccare per un po'.
Mi vuoi lasciare, eh? Sembravi diversa. Se mi lasci, mando a tutti il video che mi hai mandato mentre ti spogliavi.
Ti prego, no, non voglio. Ho paura. Se lo faccio, sono rovinata per sempre.
Cucciola, scusa, lo sai che ti amo, fatti sentire.
Non lo devi più vedere. Ma no, dai. Davvero, non lo devi più vedere. Dai, addirittura, sto già tanto male per colpa mia. Se lo lascio ho paura che pubblichi il video. Ma no, dai che non lo fa.
Cucciola, non può finire così. Dove sei?
Io gliel'ho detto, però continua a scrivermi, a chiamarmi e... Ma lo ha capito o no che è finita? Ti ho detto che non voglio che tu venga sotto casa mia. Mi stai asfissiando. Mi sta sfinendo, Lu. Secondo me dovresti parlarne con i tuoi.
Perché mi eviti? Rispondi, per favore.
È ancora lui. Ma cosa vuole ancora? Mi ha chiesto di parlare. Se non ci vado potrebbe arrabbiarsi e postare il video.
Ti prego, incontriamoci un'ultima volta. Voglio solo parlare, poi ti lascio stare.
Ok, vacci. E digli le cose come stanno e che non rompa più.
Voglio chiederti scusa, poi sparisco, giuro.
Ok, posso stare solo mezz'ora però, dopo devo studiare.
Grazie, grazie. Grazie per aver accettato di vedermi. Sono un ragazzo di 14 anni. Se amo una ragazza, voglio che sia libera.
Quando un vostro amico vi dice: la mia ragazza non l'ho mandata a ballare fuori con le amiche, quella è gente da non frequentare.
Sono giovane, ancora non so bene cosa sia l'amore, ma dentro di me so che non è violento.
La violenza sulle donne riguarda tutti.
Well, thank you. I'm sure you'll agree that's a very powerful piece of film. So thank you very much again to our winners. Yeah, definitely worth the applause. Yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of work. So thank you once again, everybody, and thank you for your participation today. Thank you for your involvement over the course of the project. As I say, we'll finish kind of a quarter an hour early. So if those of you who are in the UK want to stay on, we'll be having a short discussion, which won't take too long, but will be a really good opportunity to think about our particular context here in the UK, but for everybody else, thank you very much for your participation this afternoon, and I wish you all a very, very good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.
I should give a special. It's always dangerous to thank people individually, but I should give a special shout out to Desiree as well, one of our team members who has been in the background with Maya, putting a lot of work into some complicated scenarios in terms of videos and managing everything together. So thank you, Desiree and Maya, for your work today. Thank you. Well, as I said, we're now going to move in shortly to a kind of roundtable discussion event, and I'm very pleased. I've seen that Drew has just come in to the room. So Drew, we'll give everybody a few minutes to kind of move around, and for those who are leaving to leave, and those who are staying to stay. But we're very grateful to you, Drew, for coming and kind of kicking off our discussion this evening. So thank you. So I'll just give people a few moments to kind of move around.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Okay, great. So Drew, very kindly, I can't see you on my screen. I've got, oh, there you are. You're right.
I'm in. Hi.
I've got so many screens going. It's not a good problem I want to have, having too many people on the screen. I shouldn't be complaining about it. But so just to give a bit of context to this next part of the program. Drew is a very kind of highly recommended and skilled kind of external evaluator and kind of policy specialist. And as part of the project, the Children First project, we asked Drew to come on and do an external evaluation for us. So to kind of look at the project as a whole, and to look at it from a kind of both an internal point of view as to how it's running internally, and also to have a little look at what we could be doing better or where we could go in the future. So Drew's compiled his report, and I think for me the most striking findings, without wanting to kind of, you know, spoiler alert, without wanting to give too much away, but one of the most striking findings and why we wanted to welcome this opportunity for our participants to stay and have this chat was about what we do next. It's about how do we measure the impact of the project. And so Phil, one of our participants who asked a question earlier in the conference, was asking what is, you know, how do we measure the impact of that? And so what we've asked Drew to do is kind of share some of his thoughts on kind of what we did well, what we didn't do well. We were very open to him being incredibly open with us and sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully not too much of the latter two, but then to really just open it up for us to have an informal discussion really about kind of what we can do next here, particularly in the UK context. And Hannah's also very kindly stayed with us as well, so we could hear from Hannah and maybe from other young people on the call, you know, their perspective, and to think about what we could do next in a UK context and how we can make this project live on beyond the end of its, you know, beyond its current lifespan. So Drew, I think Desiree's got your slides
Great.
Shortly, but I will hand over to you. Perhaps you would like to kind of do a bit more of a better introduction for yourself than I've done.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Well, no, that's great. I think you've set it up really nicely, and I want to say thank you to everyone here for preparing to listen to me for a short amount of time. Thanks very much for having me along. So great. I think the slides are coming up. Good. Let me just organise my screen so I can see them as well as hopefully everyone else can. Okay, thanks very much. Can I have next slide, please, Desiree? Great. So I think Claire's introduced me as best as I was going to do. So that's helped save me a bit of time. So just to give a kind of bit of background. Now, the title of this was the findings from the interim impact assessment, and it's interim purely because I started in October 2020 when the project was still running. As we're now coming to a close, you can take this as the sort of final impact assessment, but clearly a lot of the information is being gathered while the project was still running. So just to bear that in mind. And as Claire was helpfully saying, I was looking both sort of internally and externally about the project, how well it had done. The kind of key questions I had at the start were about, how have we done so far in the project? At that point, did we just expect to deliver on our expected impacts? And what can we do to improve our chance of doing that and indeed look to the future? So that's where I was, what I was tasked with and where I was going to come in. Next slide, please. I took a range of different methods along and applied these to finding out the answers to those questions. So I won't go into this too much depth. I'm happy to answer more detailed questions if people are interested later on. But really, this involved me reviewing the project materials that have been completed to date, including sort of internal plans, risk assessments, that kind of thing. Then I undertook some online surveys of key stakeholders, specifically members of the Youth Advisory Boards in each of the 5 participating countries, as well as surveys of professionals, policymakers and parents who've been involved already. I followed that up with, it was intended to be focus groups with professionals as well. Didn't manage to do that, I can tell you why in a second, but also we undertook focus groups with 3 of the Youth Advisory Boards as well, in Greece, Italy and in the UK. I undertook 2 interviews with 2 professionals, managed to do that. And likewise, at the start of the project, I undertook detailed qualitative interviews with all the project partners to understand how they felt things had gone, what things that identify as improvements, and learnings for the future. So the limitations, next slide, right? The limitations of evaluation I wanted to put out front at the start. You're always going to have a snapshot in any research project, and that's the same for any evaluation. You're never going to be able to talk to literally everyone who's involved in the project. So there's always going to be a bit of prioritization there. The things I do want to pull out though is, firstly, there was a very low response rate from the kind of professionals, policymakers and parents, stakeholders. Very low response rate to the online surveys. And as I mentioned before, I had sent out via the partners invitations to a set of focus groups, and I didn't have any responses back. On that basis, there is a gap, I would say, in terms of our understanding of what those groups thought about the project. Now, certainly by the attendance today and attendance at the previous conference, there is definitely engagement there. It may simply be a case of these people, they're very busy, professionals, policymakers, parents, like everyone, they've got other things to do. And it may well be that the amount of time they could offer the project was limited to the offering of the expertise to help build the products, rather than then talk to little old me about how they felt about it at all. But that's something we can't really draw conclusions on what their views were. Similarly, you might have noticed only 3 of the Youth Advisory Boards were available focus groups. And I can go into the reasons of why the recent Lithuania groups were not available, but we can't say that all the YABs thought the same way about it. All I can tell you is what the views are from the groups that I did speak to. That's it. Let's move on to the next one. Really, I would overall say that the key findings are very good, and my overall impression, the overall conclusions of my evaluations are very positive. So on a sort of internal basis, it feels like it's been a very well-run project. That's certainly my judgment, but you don't need to take my word from that. That's what the partners all said independently when they didn't have to, they knew it was all going to be anonymized, from participants as well. Everyone seems to be overall very positive about the development of the project, its aims, and how it was run. Secondly, Children First has delivered the project products that we were looking for overall. So the training package, the mobile game awareness campaign, and often sorts around that. That's more or less on time and to a high quality. I say more or less on time, they're done, but there was some allowances and some rescheduling required due to a number of factors, but largely, as people will be aware, of COVID as well, which impacted the research schedule. And finally, there's some very positive views from the participants. Again, I talk about the partners, but also children and young people involved, the professionals who did respond to the surveys. Very positive views about the products. People were very welcoming of the training package, of the mobile game, and felt positive about their potential to help tackle gender-based or dating violence, as it was phrased in different parts of the project. So could you just go back a second, Desiree? Thank you. I just wanted to finish off that last point. overall, the project's done what it intended to do on time, and people involved feel overall positive about what's been created. Thanks. Next one, please. There's some things I'm not going to dwell too long on this, because I suppose this is more sort of insider tweaks that I suppose less relevant now the project's come to an end, but more to think about for the future. There's definitely some improvements that were highlighted that could be made to this project, and indeed could be applied to others. So a bit of the internal process there that you can read. The one I'd very much like to pull out there is about the opportunities. There was definitely a call from the youth advisory boards I speak to about opportunities for them to meet and collaborate with other groups. So it's not just the UK group meeting with the partners and themselves. There was definitely a call that we'd like to be able to share ideas and meet and understand what the group in Lithuania is doing, what the group in Italy is doing, to be able to collaborate and come up with more creative ideas about how to take things forward. The other things I pull out, again, happy to go into these in more depth, but I want to keep this to a short, tight 10 minutes, is that there was other some tweaks, improvements to the products actually made that people did say would improve the quality of those things, and indeed likely their use by children and young people. Very much, for example, there were several sort of tweaks and suggestions made about the mobile game. One example was that the scenario text that people go through is actually quite large and chunky, and it would be better to break that up into smaller chunks, particularly for younger children. I haven't put that there, but there was also several people independently said it would be useful to have that as an audio file as well, or possibly even to add in videos as well to the mobile game to make it more accessible to different children and young people, as well as break it up into more bite-sized packages. And you can see some of the other things that were suggested there by various people who contributed to the evaluation. Next slide, please. And there are other, I suppose, more long-term ideas that came out from the evaluation, which was more about looking to future projects, like if we were going to do this again, or if we were going to expand, in a sense, do Children First Mark II, but bigger. Definitely, there was a lot of support for the idea of involving children from earlier age groups, and there was a sense that actually some of the gender stereotypes that can contribute to gender-based violence or susceptibility to that are embedded earlier. So is there a way that we can engage children younger than 11 or 12? Certainly, there was a lot of positivity about the possibility about involving more partners from more EU countries to expand the reach. But definitely people were also keen on moving to even more co-production approaches, actually with young people getting even more involved in the development of products, but also delivering the material themselves within schools and other settings. So that's all the good stuff, with some tweaks and developments. The biggest takeaway I'd want to put out there, which is, having said all that, I want to be really clear. It does feel like a very strong project, and the products themselves, from the vast majority of accounts, have been very, very well received. The tricky thing is in a sense, that the project was established in a way that actually there's a mismatch between what the stated aims were and the work that was actually undertaken. What I've said later down this slide is that Children First is delivered more as a research project than a change project. And what I mean by that is that the project's stated aims was to prevent or reduce dating violence. However, what it's done is produced a number of very positive resources aimed at raising awareness. And they should help, from best logic and the responses I've had, to raise awareness. But awareness doesn't equal behavior change. That just because someone and people are aware of elements, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will change their behavior or cause others to change their behavior. Despite smoking cessation campaigns out there in the world, people still take up smoking. Young people still take up smoking. Adults take up smoking. Awareness doesn't do everything. Doesn't get us all the way there. And so, what I would say for that, on this basis, the project does serve as a good first step towards dating violence, but it's not enough to get us there. And crucially, the project was not set up to measure the changes these products and activities might create. The measurements that were outlined in that were about, in a sense, participants welcoming the products and thinking that they were of good quality, which they do, which is great. But that doesn't tell us that they've actually helped reduce dating violence, which is the essential problem that we're talking about. So that helps us think and move on to what I think we're going to be talking about today, which is about what could we do in a future project to help move us from the idea about raising awareness to actual behavior change, and indeed then measure that change. So I don't claim the sort of the options I've suggested here are particularly detailed. We need a lot of work, but just to get the ball rolling, get people thinking, these are two sort of options of very different types of projects that might be considered in the future. Firstly, the idea of a longitudinal project, a long-term, 2 to 5 years project, maybe focused in one or two more schools, to implement materials in depth on an ongoing basis. And in doing so, you'd be working with an ongoing cohort, and you'd be able to, through various methods as I can go into, measure changes, hopefully, in awareness, attitudes, and behaviors of young people, maybe teachers and children and parents too. You might be able to apply that in other settings relevant to children and young people. And also, you might find out that these materials might be raising awareness, but they're not causing behavior change. And that would then help us think about what would actually cause the behavior change we're looking for to reduce gender-based dating violence. The other option, could do these both at once, depends how much time and money everyone has, would be actually about a policy influencing campaign, about can we embed these resources, these messages, this teaching into school curriculum rather. That might involve actually working with senior civil servants and politicians to embed this sort of awareness and look at how we could do an overall behaviour change initiative across a country or across a school district. That might indeed involve discussions about whether existing laws need to be amended to better address gender-based dating violence, or indeed measure it on a large scale. Final slide, please. So those are just two ideas to get the ball rolling. There are a number of different ways that we could take it about, and we could include some of those points I raised before that were reported to the evaluation about co-production and various improvements to the actual projects themselves. There are different ranges of methods to measure behaviour change, and we could use and employ to measure reductions in dating violence. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's not easy. It is, trying to create and then measure social change is a big challenge, particularly when it comes to something that carries a lot of stigma. But these are things that we could consider in various iterations of these types of projects. So things like pre, mid, and post-project questionnaires, possibly focus groups and interviews of an established cohort, established group of children, young people, professionals, to help track behaviours that they report and any changes that we see. You could also do attitudinal surveys, i.e. to understand people's attitudes towards gender stereotypes. You might be able to do that as part of the same methods, but what might be useful to consider is about doing attitudinal surveys of a representative sample of the country's population. For example, in the UK, there are large survey firms who you can hire. This is not an endorsement for me, but for example, YouGov have a weekly population tracker survey where they take a representative sample of the UK population, and you can pay them to add questions to that to get a sort of snapshot in time from a representative sample of this is how the British public or a subsection of the British public think about X issue. In terms of actual measuring instances, you could look at school incidence reporting. You'd have to think very carefully about what counts as an incident of gender-based violence and that, but that might be a source of useful material to work from. And likewise, sort of national statistics that there may be on gender-based violence, or a suitable set of proxy measures. It depends very much, of course, on how data on violence is collected and categorized. And certainly, I know in the UK, there have been efforts recently to better capture violence that has had a gender-based or sexist component to it. So those are the results of the evaluation, and those are some of the thinking for the future. Thanks very much for your time, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you very much, Drew. That's really, really helpful kind of way of kind of thinking and kicking us off. I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Hannah, I don't know if you you'd also raised some of those reflections about some of the things that the young people could do, or that the Youth Advisory Board had kind of highlighted. Do you want to say anything in terms of kind of adding to what Drew said on any of those things?
Yeah, sure. So I was just writing a few things down while she was speaking, actually. So in terms of the policy change, I think that's a great idea. Obviously, that will be impactful within schools because, as I said before, I never learned about it in school. There was never a topic that we focused on. So that would be great to bring it into the school curriculum and make it more impactful in combination with the project as well. But in terms of, say, when you were saying about the impact, I feel like that's quite a difficult part to focus on. As obviously we've learned from the results, a lot of people don't talk to their parents, don't talk to teachers or even their peers. So maybe going through the route of educating first and creating awareness to then like destigmatize the issue and the sense of talking to people about it, because at the moment then we'll be able to go off of statistics of people who are already talking about it and then be able to go off of what the impact of the project is on those people, but without us being able to desensitize the issue, then destigmatize the issue, then it's difficult to be able to bring in those people who are actually suffering in silence, and we need to make it more of increase the awareness so then people actually do start talking about it, so then we can see what the impact is in that kind of sense. If that helps, I'm not too sure if it does, but I hope it does.
That does. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. That's all I had to say.
Great, thank you, Hannah. I mean, there's still quite a lot of us on the call, which is great, but there's fewer of us than there were. I'm hoping that we can use this as an opportunity to have quite an informal kind of chat. So if anybody wants to just jump in with any comments or questions, please do, because we'd love to hear from you, particularly people who've not been involved in the project and, you know, from an outsider perspective, you know, to sort of share your thoughts about how we could take this forward. Yes, Phil, I can see you've put your camera on and hopefully I'm
Yeah, I just suddenly realised that I had that profile picture up, which was a carefully posed photograph, and now I've switched to live camera. So sorry for the shock, everybody.
Like you're outdoors. That looks nice.
Yes, taking advantage of the thing in the garden. Somebody said it looked like a green screen thing, but it is real. It's a real shrub. So as I said earlier on in the chat, I'm the same Phil that said I thought it was an astonishing the breadth of the work that you've done is incredible. But I mean, permission to speak freely, sir, if I may. That I guess it does feel like a kind of a year one awareness raising thing, which isn't a criticism, that's an observation, because of course you have to have year one because you can't have year 2 or 3 or and so on, and so it feels like that. Another thing, and I'm really offering this up as an observation because I have only encountered this today. So anything at all that I know about this program is what I've managed to glean today. So what I'm about to say may be completely wrong, so please tell me if it is. But I felt as though this is something, so for instance, like all the artwork, so very much from I understand the importance of people who have been the receivers of that kind of abuse and been on the receiving end of that kind of behavior, that for those people to have an opportunity to be heard and to be able to tell those stories, I completely understand the value of that. But it still feels a little like the angle is from there rather than, basically what I'm trying to say is this is a male problem. I mean, generally speaking, or I know, of course, we can do the kind of, you know, I'm definitely not going to be one of the people that's going to do the not all men thing. But you know, mostly, generally speaking, in the majority of cases, this is a male problem. So the beautiful, very moving video that we saw just now, just those final moments where you had the young men speaking and saying, if you're hanging out with the guys that think this is okay, you've got the wrong, find new mates. And I thought, yes, there we go. That needs to really be amplified. I feel that message that we, you know, that talking to boys and young men and thinking about how they're educated and talks to about these issues, and really, you know, drive you home that if you want to be a real man, this is not how you be a real man, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting, Phil. And one of the things that the the art contest has sort of tended to go towards people who've had those experiences. But
Sure.
one of the points of doing the teacher kind of, you know, the stuff for teachers and educators and youth workers, etc., is to give people the opportunity to create those spaces in schools and other places to have those conversations at a young age. Because I mean, I think I agree that, and I don't know if you remember, sorry, more UK based, but after the Sarah Everard murder, there were quite a lot of men who were out there saying, tell us what, you know, tell us what you want to do. You know, there is this kind of desire for this conversation, which isn't really happening, because, you know, men are just saying, you know, tell us what you want us to do. How can I not make you feel scared just by walking down the street, you know? So I think you're right. I mean, Drew, I don't know if you want to come in. I see you put something in the chat, but I don't know if you want to say anything. Obviously, I feel like I can't comment.
I was actually going to come back to Phil on that one. I was going back to Amina's question.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I completely agree that I think Phil's right on that we need to kind of do this. And again, I think actually trying it out, it feels to me like trying this in schools and make it, you know, getting younger people to have these conversations are, you know, is really, really important. And it's just thinking about how we might facilitate that process. I don't know if we've got any teachers, you know, people who are particularly teachers on the call or not, but I'd love to hear from teachers if you have them on the call. I was speaking to one friend of mine who's a headmaster actually, and he was hoping to join us this evening, but I think has got waylaid by something else, as headmasters want to do. Who was saying that his school was one of the ones named on the Everyone's Invited website, and you know, it was a horrible experience for them as a school to be named in that way. But that actually they haven't then been given the follow-up support as to, and this is how we can tackle it, you know, and that's one of the most important things I think we can offer going forward, is to actually try and tackle this, you know, and give people the resources to do that.
If I could, I'll just jump in. There was actually something to add on there. Sorry, apologies, Phil. I was listening to you, but I was also trying to go back to Rabina in the chat as well. I mean, one thing I found quite useful actually that came out from a couple of the interviews was some suggestions that it would be great to engage, to offer you know, more opportunities for kind of creative exploration of the topics that gender-based violence brings up with children and young people, and give them the chance to, especially in schools, to do something creative with that. One of the teachers I spoke to in the in-depth interviews had talked about their work, for example, talking about HIV/AIDS. And using kind of popular depictions of that to spark conversations, to break down the stigma, and certainly that was something that seemed to resonate with other people who I spoke to subsequent to that interview. Again, I want to be clear. I am not a teacher, nor am I an expert. An expert in this type of research, but certainly that sounded like a way to, I suppose, help more people find a voice and be express and understand the issues without necessarily having to disclose things that may be of particular concern to them. I mean, certainly going back to Hannah's point about the stigma and people feeling they're unable to talk about these things. Sometimes those sort of opportunities, whether it's film, whether it's again more detailed mobile game, whether it's other ways to express themselves, can be a way of getting that message across in what feels like a safe environment.
Great, thank you, Drew. Phil, did you want to come back in there?
Yeah, I was just interested in what, apologies if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Romina had asked about the age, and I'm a big fan of kind of upstream intervention. You know, I don't know if people are familiar with that poem about the fence at the top of the cliff or the ambulance down in the valley, you know, so I probably don't need to tell you the entire content of that. You can figure out for yourselves, but definitely a fence at the top of the cliff I think is generally a desirable thing to install, and I guess that you can do that in an age appropriate way. So you could be starting work, I think, at probably quite a young age without, you know, because of course there would be sensitivities there about the ethics of, you know, the content of what you're talking about. But if the thin end of the wedge that can result in sexual assault and in, you know, in sexual violence in a situation that's supposed to be dating, then that can begin with just the whole idea of power imbalance and people exercising power, but also, and I guess again, I haven't had an opportunity to look at the materials in your course yet, and I definitely will. But, you know, I'm wondering about the research in terms of, you know, like if you're looking at criminal behavior in young people, that often you can see what the indicators are going to be, what the risk factors are. You know, we know that, again, of course there will always be exceptions, but generally speaking, if people, you know, have had these experiences, they are more likely to engage in criminal behavior. And I suspect the same is true here, that there will be those kind of risk factors that can be identified. I'm wondering about how all this ties in with kind of trauma-informed principles as well, that, you know, people who are so I wonder about that as well, about just identifying those issues at an earlier time. Again, I suppose there's ethical, you know, kind of, it's like the kind of a Minority Report precog idea. You don't necessarily want to point to somebody and go, you're going to end up being somebody who does this. Of course not, but yeah, I wonder if that research exists.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I don't know, Sanders, who did our research, sadly couldn't join us today, but I think one of the things that she also highlighted, and I'd like to come back to this question around the age thing that Robina raised, actually, for anybody else to comment on that, if anybody's got any thoughts. But just to say that the, I know it's a bit of a buzzword, but the kind of the intersectional aspect of this was very interesting. The young people that we interviewed and had focus groups in London, they were suffering, that I don't mean that. They were experiencing a range of different things that could be considered deprivations or, you know, whatever. So it wasn't just a case of their attitude towards gender. It was how that intersected with race, how that intersected with sexual identity, how that intersected with poverty, you know, how that intersected with culture. So I think there's, from what we've seen so far in the project, there isn't a whole load of research out there that kind of looks really at that. So I think that's definitely a fruitful area for consideration in future. So one of the things, just to go back to something that Romina raised in the chat, she one of the things Drew had said in his report, which I wrote down because it was quite striking to me, was that we should maybe consider this at, you know, having these conversations at an earlier age group. And I just wonder if anybody else has any experience or comments or thoughts about, you know, how we might do that. I mean, whether it's looking very much more at gender stereotypes at an earlier age rather than moving on to this kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm not a teacher. I'm not an expert in the field, so I'd love to hear from anybody if anybody else have thoughts on kind of, you know, what age we should start these kind of conversations, and, you know, what is sort of age appropriate type.
I want to add to that question. I don't want to answer the question.
Answering a question by asking another question. Nice.
No. It's just like adding to that. I am wondering because like a big part of like what Alexandra was saying is that we like the result that the Children First showed were like, children don't want to talk to adults, they don't want to talk to teachers, they don't want to talk, but even some of them didn't want to talk to their peers. And I know that Hannah said that it would be a good idea to have like young people maybe like giving these workshops, but if like, I don't know if like what children, more teenagers maybe than children, fear is like, not fear, but like they don't want to talk to like that leader, or they don't want to be I don't know, they don't want to look inferior. Like I don't know exactly what is there that's particularly the teenagers have. And I think I don't know if like any of you have read a study of like how to motivate children to actually like engage with, because I think that's a difficult thing. Like you can obviously work on prevention when you are working with younger kids. But when it comes to teenagers and they don't want to talk to you about what has happened to them, I really don't know how to approach that.
I'd love to hear anybody else who's got thoughts on that, or maybe
might jump in on that part.
Yeah.
So as a 21-year-old coming out of being a teenager now, sadly, I guess it's like the stereotypical sort of sense of no one understands me kind of thing, and people who are either their teachers or professionals are too far away from their age gap. So perhaps other people who are around the same age, maybe just a little older, who are able to try and relate to them on that level, or say someone who has been through that recently, obviously not too recently where we go into trauma, but someone who can say that, listen, this is what my experience has been, saying how it may be taken at face value as something that is normal and that can be brushed underneath the carpet, but when you speak to people about it, these are the results of what can come out of speaking to people, like how you can get help. Whereas they may think that if they tell someone what's happened, then it can go to the extreme of, say, like when they're dating, they don't want to get that person in trouble. That may be the reason why they are not communicating this with other people. So trying to explain to them how it doesn't have to go to the extreme of getting the police involved, or like it being this big drama that they think may happen. Take it in baby steps and show them that you need to be able to take back these barriers and change your mindset of what is right and wrong, etc. Just to try and talk to them on a level that isn't a teacher telling them off, or them thinking that, like you said, are inferior to the people who are telling them what should be right and wrong. Maybe relating to them on a level that they understand. I suppose that could help them in a way.
Yeah, thank you. Sophia?
Yeah, this is very much following on from what Hannah said, actually, but I think as the recent Everyone's Invited report kind of shows, like young people in schools at the moment are aware of these issues. It's not something that was taught, certainly not something I was taught about. But if we're teaching, it needs to not be too teachery. Basically, we need to sort of figure out how this can be a discussion-based kind of, I guess still educational, but not just kind of telling people that these concepts exist, because I think young people are, very aware of that. Certainly that's the kind of feedback we got in the focus groups, and that having these discussions when people are 17, 18 is actually, too late. People already know about these things. So yeah.
Yeah, Romina, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi. I was thinking when I was in school and we were addressing another issue, which was eating disorders. We had many people coming and tell us about eating disorders, and then we had women that had overcome eating disorders telling their personal stories. And that was 10 times more powerful than no matter how many workshops we've been through. Because we could relate. They were just like us, just a little bit older. And I think, yeah, personal stories are usually really, really powerful, but it's very hard to reach and convince these people to share their stories because they are going through their own trauma. But that could be, from my perspective, that's a really powerful message.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Drew, you've got your hand up there.
It was really more to agree with that. I just putting two things together from my evaluation and presentation. I think that goes, I think, to the spirit of what people talk about co-production as well. I mean, there's a limit to how far you can go with that, particularly as you start involving younger and younger people, because there are obviously ethical problems with asking younger people to run things for, in a sense, on your behalf. But I think indeed very much like hearing from people who you see as your peers, or were not for a couple of years would be your peers, who've had those experiences, I think could be very powerful. So just putting those two things together and endorsing what Romina said.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I think it was something that maybe Hannah or the Youth Advisory Board raised in when they talked to you, Drew, but the idea of peer-led training, I think is one that is a kind of a rich seam to be explored for all of the reasons that we've shared above. And I'd certainly be interested in thinking about taking this forward by having, training young people to work with other young people, whilst taking all the ethical considerations into account. And of course, it's about prevention, I guess. So we're hoping that we get to people before they have these stories of what's happened to them. But I think one of the other things that came out of the Ofsted report, as I mentioned earlier, was the fact that this has been normalised, and so having these spaces for these conversations, people don't realise that it's happening, or even after it's happened, they don't realise that it's a problem, that it's happened. And I think that's breaking through that kind of consciousness and making people realise, helping people to understand and realise that it's not okay. It is really, really key to taking this forward. Phil, did you?
I thought that was one of the most fantastic things about the film, was that progression idea. It goes from "I don't want you to wear that mini skirt" to actual physical violence. And so at that point, saying no, you can't tell somebody what they're supposed to wear. That's ridiculous. And if you're jumping at that point, yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I would encourage you all, if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, to go and have a look at all the artworks and things and the films in the gallery, because they are an incredible standard. Considering these were 12 to 18-year-olds, they are incredibly high standards. And interestingly, a lot of them were written by men. As you were saying, Phil, it's kind of, in some ways it's a male problem, but a lot of these things were written by men, and of course we mustn't forget that men, young boys, are also victims of violence and gender-related violence, and that's something that I think we need to be careful when we're managing the conversations around this, that's actually also an issue, and it's not entirely kind of men against women in this scenario. And one of the things that we maybe started to explore a bit in some of our scenarios and things was the kind of the conditions around different people's experiences of kind of sexual identity, and some of the scenarios in the game are not just about kind of physical violence, but they're around people's kind of the attitudes towards people when they maybe come out as gay or something like that. So that there's quite a lot of kind of stuff in there that people may not realise is actually bullying or harassment, but it's actually helping people to understand that. It's important. Anybody else want to share?
No, but I was going to say something. Mason, the person who won as well, like the writing competition, he wrote, and we're going to present that in one of our info days for Children First as well. He wrote a really good article on how, I think it's called The Power of Two Letters, and it's like women. And it was really good because it showed what advantages he had, or what was expected from him, or what were the disadvantages that women had, or all these differences that he has perceived as a man. And it was amazing, and I'm really excited to also show it for the info days, because it's just, honestly, the way that I love what we have been saying, the way that people can express through art or the writing competition. It just brings, I think you can write or you can put there something freely, and you don't feel like you are maybe exposing yourself to anything. So we have had amazing submissions for that competition as well.
Great, thank you. So just to provide a bit of context and a very lovely plug there, Desiree, thank you very much. We're continuing on with the artwork theme in the UK, and we're actually running our own national competition. But perhaps somebody could put the link in the chat to that. Actually, that would be really helpful. So we're encouraging, because of the time constraints of the projects thing, we're extending our national competition. So we'd love, if any young people, we'd love them to be involved in that. And we will be taking this forward with an info day later in July. So obviously we're trying to squeeze everything in before the end of the school term, and whilst appreciating that this last couple of years has been incredibly difficult for teachers and educators and people who work in the learning environment because of everything they've had to kind of squeeze in through COVID. But we will be running a kind of information day to showcase some of the young people's work, and also to launch our youth-led magazine, which is going to be based around issues kind of gender and relationships. So given that those of you who are kind of UK based or still on the call, we will contact you about that if you are happy for us to kind of share that information with you, because it would be lovely to give people some time to go away and then maybe to come back and reflect and think about how we could take this forward in this country. I think it's been a really fruitful discussion. I appreciate the football's coming up, and maybe it's only me who wants to watch it, but I'm just going to say I appreciate that's coming up, and you've given up a lot of time this afternoon, because I know most of you have been on the call since it started at 1:30. So I'm very happy to take any last kind of comments, questions, or ideas. But if nobody has any, then we'd love to kind of follow up with you and then sort of think about how we can take this forward, particularly in a UK context. Sadly, we're not able to get follow-up funding for this project from the usual source, because this has been funded by the European Union, for which we are no longer allowed to request funding. So we will be looking at ways in which we can take this forward in a UK context with UK funding. So again, if there's anybody out there kind of on this group who would be interested in kind of partnering with us in some way, whether educators or through art or through any other way, we'd love to stay in touch with you. Anybody else got any last comments, questions? Drew, yes.
It was more just a personal note, really. I know when I've come in and as the evaluator, you're the kind of disinterested, cold-hearted person who looks at all this. But I just wanted to say, it's from my perspective, one of the reasons I wanted to get involved was my passion for the topic and how important this is. And from my perspective, it is such a good start. From all I said about wanting to measure the impact, and I just would be so grateful to see everyone on this call taking this forward, because it's so important, and I'm happy to obviously contribute pro bono or otherwise going forward to helping make that happen, helping to tackle gender-based violence. So just wanted to say, just keep the momentum going, everyone. This can't be let lie. So great. I just really so pleased to see all the work that's been there, and hope it continues.
Well, thank you, Drew. This is great. I keep being, upstaged by the people doing the presenting, and I don't have to say anything because they've done it all. But thank you. I agree, Drew. I think it's one of those things that it kind of really gets under your skin when you start this kind of work and these kind of projects, and especially when we have the opportunity to work with young people directly. It really brings these things to life. And so thank you very much to everybody who's been involved so far in the project. And yeah, I really would love to kind of connect with you all about how we take this forward. I put my personal work email address in the chat, so if anybody does want to get in touch with me directly, I'm very happy to kind of speak to people, and obviously we'll be sending a follow-up from the whole conference, so we'll kind of include ways in which you could stay involved in the UK context, as well as all the other countries as well. Thank you very, very much, I must say, to Hannah for her wonderful kind of presentation earlier. It's not easy to do to speak at a conference, and especially not on Zoom. I find it very difficult to do these Zoom conferences. So thank you, Hannah, you've been brilliant. And thank you also, thank you very much to Drew as well for not at all being cold-hearted and dispassionate. I would never describe you in that way, but Drew's really come alongside us in the project and helped us to understand both what we're doing well, but also how we can do it better in a really creative and constructive way. So very appreciative to Drew. And yeah, anybody got any last comments or thoughts, please feel free to share. Otherwise, I suggest we call it a day, and we'll be in touch soon. Great. Okay. Well, I will hopefully bump into you all at some point again, maybe even in real life one day. Woo, wouldn't that be exciting? So thank you very much for your time, everybody, this afternoon. Have a great evening, and thank you to Desiree and Maya as well, who've been running things behind the scenes. It's not easy to kind of put up multiple videos and pictures and things like that and presentations. So you've done a great job there. So thank you, and yes, have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Enjoy.